Old Mage Guy is now live, streaming politics, morning news with OMG.
Pretty much hate the fact that it says I'm streaming politics. Not streaming politics, I'm talking about fucking shit. That's kind of what we're here for. Good morning, everybody. I'm still waking up. We're not that much to look at tonight. So it's that thunderstorms in the area. Yay. Well, that's all today's stuff. That's stuff from yesterday and this one. One for this one.
This Dash talks to you in response when you give it voice commands.
So Harry Litman, it doesn't. Seem that Donald Trump's joint address statements about Doge and Musk come back to haunt him and backfire, where he says Doge is a department that we created and Elon Musk is leading it and running everything. It was actually cited in a recent opinion that's really important to gaining access to information about what the hell is Doge doing. A federal judge in Washington, D.C., has ordered the urgent release of Doge records, citing, quote, unprecedented power and unusual secrecy.
Records? You expect the Doge to have records? I don't know about that, man.
Judge Cooper, federal judge in Washington, D.C., hearing this public records case brought by the group that many of our viewers and listeners know. They're called CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington versus U.S. Doge Service, or USDS, whatever they're calling themselves. And what CREW said is, look, we made this public records request originally, and it seemed that Doge and the agencies that it worked with as well were going to turn over the records. They then did an abrupt about-face. They then are making this argument that they don't have to turn over records and they're impervious to FOIA requests, and they're not. They hold exceptional power over what's going on in our government, and the Freedom of Information Act request applies to them. Judge Cooper goes through this analysis of the various requests that are being sought by CREW, and this includes, communications with Office of Management and Budget, and the emails and the messages about what was taking place. Doge does not want any of this being released, and the court does this analysis. One of the things it says as well is, yeah, we've got evidence of what Trump was saying as well during that State of the Union or joint address. whatever they're calling it, where he was mentioning the incredible powers of Doge, and they shouldn't be free from Freedom of Information Act requests. The judge doesn't cite the specific date, but says it needs to be done expeditiously. The judge set a status report in the next 10 days or so for the parties to say when these documents will be turned over. I'm going to guess that Doge is going to appeal to the D.C. Circuit and try to bring this all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. But Harry, go through what this decision's about. How big of a deal is it? The analysis the court went through. Would love to hear your take on it.
Sure, and thanks, man. I think it's a pretty big deal because it's the first one. There have been different kinds of attacks on what Doge and Musk are doing, but really, this is the one that goes to the heart of the problem, which is, as Judge Cooper says, huge power, complete secrecy, lack of transparency. What the hell is going on? This is what the Freedom of Information Act is about. Citizens have a right to know.
And the American citizens are saying,
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
What their government is doing, except subject to certain exemptions, which Cooper says that's fine. We just want their basic information. And what he technically holds is, and it's important because, as you say, the State of the Union and elsewhere, they've been doing this two-step about both what Doge is and who Musk is. And, anywhere from super important kind of, running the whole executive branch down to, just some, helpful advisors who check in with the president every once in a while. For purposes of FOIA, Cooper says, A, it's an agency, and that means they're subject to all kinds of holdings. And then also B, it's under FOIA exigent. Crew, as you noticed, they're repeat players, and they've been really pretty clever. They tie it to the appropriations process, which on Friday, as you know, is when the money runs out. And the people's right to be informed, to participate in the democratic process for the very basic government.
can I? Yes. Would I really rather like to? No. It's one, I'd rather have issues with getting too warm. On top of that, shirts can be a bit constraining and not very comfortable.
Function of how Congress allocates money. They need to know all this stuff about Doge because it could be the way things have been going. Congress appropriates.
I mean,
Doge
you'd be okay with
says,
it if you weren't
never
so
mind. So, first of all, it's also an elegant opinion, pithy. Cooper's a good writer, and he has some very kind of telling statements about how the administration generally is trying to have it different ways with Doge as it suits its kind of interest.
No offense, but if I'm ugly, I worry about your standards. Even if I'm not visually someone's cup of tea, ugly shouldn't exactly be the thought through your head, so... That's what you. I ain't got no way, shape, or form on that one.
To sort of bob and weave, and he goes through a lot of the public controversy involving Doge, but it fits in exactly to what he's holding, which is the people have a right to know here. So besides that, it's a really nicely written, 37 or something page opinion. He really does go through it. I think it's important because it's the first one that gets to the heart of the real problem here, which is just the government by new entity, whoever the hell they are, with this big question mark in the middle, whoever the hell this mini-me Elon Musk is, and it says the people need the information. That is what FOIA is about. And sure enough, I'm finding that you're likely to win it. There'll be irreparable injury if you don't get this information because you're coming into the appropriations process. So I think it's the best sort of fit of all the various cases that have gone through with Doge, and he, I think, writes it up really cleanly. So we'll see if they appeal, but I think he's made a really solid sort of initial analysis why the public has a need to know, and soon, exigently. There's other things under FOIA that says, you don't have to wait the 6 months while the bureaucrat goes through this and that. You get to know right away. This is one of them because the appropriations process and money running out come Friday.
Now this opens up the floodgates also. This was the first one. So if you think about, poking that first hole with the wooden ship, and then the water starts to come in, others are going to be following this and looking at this analysis, because there are a lot of groups, from the veterans groups that are having their lives destroyed to the people in NIH,
Anyone
and the
ever tell you
CDC,
you kind of look like an
to
albino
people working
orangutan?
in the national parks, to the Department of Education and Labor, and the
albino orangutan. No, that's a new one.
probationary employees. You can imagine everybody who wants this discovery now and what's actually going on behind the scenes as Doge. And you can imagine that Elon Musk and his team of Mr. Big.
There's kind of one problem with that. Every human looks like a hairless orangutan, depending on how much you actually want to go into detailed comparisons.
Balls, or whatever they're calling themselves these days, do not want these records turned over. The order by Judge Cooper also included a preservation order that basically says, I'm hereby ordering Doge and all of the entities it's communicated with that you cannot delete anything, destroy anything. Everything needs to be segregated immediately, all of this electronically stored information. And this is the page on 36 where Judge Cooper goes over this analysis, and he's saying, here are the issues why we don't think that Elon Musk and Doge are going to be forthcoming. Crew also notes reports that USDS employees have refused to identify themselves when requested to do so by career officials, further suggesting that the agency is operating with unusual secrecy. It goes on to talk about how, and although Crew requested assurances of FRA compliance from USDS, defendants apparently did not even respond. It goes on to say, the evidence gives rise to the possibility that representatives of the defendant entities may not fully appreciate their obligation to preserve federal records. This is especially true for USDS, many of whose staffers are reported to have joined the federal government only recently, and to put it charitably, may not be steeped in document retention policies. That being said, the court need not make a finding of bad faith in order to enter a document preservation order. Hint, hint, we all know that. This is what I'm doing now. You see what I'll do in the future. And that's clear to any lawyer what the judge was saying right there. Howard, I'll give you them.
No, the closest to an albino orangutan I've been called would be a mutant or experimental escape gorilla. It'd be the closest, and I'll just go. This is not a gorilla body build. There are a lot of bodybuilders out there that got that build.
Last one.
Yeah, and also, I mean, in going through the history, he doesn't hammer them, but he notes for the record, in case he has to hammer them down the line, the many different ways in which they can, or, there's a record now, they're coming to court and saying, oops, the dog ate it, or we'll get back to you. And it's an interesting position now for the federal courts. It's coming up in a couple cases, including the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision, Ben, which is, you have this relationship with the executive where you come and say, here's the law and do it, but you have to be a little cautious and gingerly, because if you say do it by tomorrow and they come in with some difficult to decipher kind of excuse, if you're already precipitated the kind of constitutional showdown we said Thursday at 12, and you're here and it's time to pay the check, and you say we don't have any money in the bank. So Cooper is wisely saying, and this is what's also happened in the Supreme Court case involving USAID, as soon as practicable, I want to know right away, and this is the hearing that's coming up Friday, what's out there, but that you can tell me right away. But adroitly and with sophistication, these are the judges who handle these kinds of cases all the time. Not setting.
I think it's time. I'm very much so think it's time.
It's damn time!
Well, we're talking about great apes. Let's go to the Vanilla Gorilla. Why not? Get my tool heated up and then hit play again.
Themselves for failure, setting it up to be able to push on them, and if necessary, do more kinds of orders or coercive measures, even up to contempt, but leaving a little play in the joints, because they know the real possibility that they're going to come back with some kind of crazy excuse. So okay, we don't want to. They'll still want to be able to roll with the punches there and get the information out as soon as possible.
There you have it, Harry Litman, Talking Feds podcast, Talking Feds YouTube, and the Talking Feds Substack. Please subscribe to all of them. Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, Talking Feds podcast, where I get.
Not seeing that one. No. This guy should be good to go. Today's stuff. Okay. 3 hours ago.
President Zelensky's popularity in Ukraine is surging after he stood up to Donald Trump in defense of his country, and as he continues to courageously stand up to Russia from Russia's unlawful invasion of Ukraine. Just a week or so after Donald Trump said that Zelensky had a 4% approval rating, which was a lie, and just a few weeks after Donald Trump attacked Zelensky in the Oval Office and demanded that there be elections held in Ukraine, which is a Putin talking point we're now seeing Zelensky's approval surging. It's at 72%. It's getting close to where it was almost at the beginning of the war, the unlawful invasion by Ukraine. Zelensky's approval rating continues to grow higher, now at 72%, with only 12% of Ukrainians in favor of holding elections now. When Donald Trump was lying and saying Zelensky's approval was at 4%, it was in the mid-50s. Now it is surging. When you stand up to Donald Trump, what happens is your people appreciate that. Trump's pressures continue to produce the opposite effect. Just to remind you, a few weeks back when Donald Trump was claiming that Zelensky's approval was at 4%, no, Donald, it's at 72%, and only 12% of Ukrainians won elections during the unlawful invasion by Russia.
But we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site.
Now, Zelensky has been a master negotiator with the help of Europe and Canada as well. What happened was Zelensky's delegation met in Saudi Arabia with the delegation led by Marco Rubio, and one of the things that came out of this meeting in Saudi Arabia from earlier of the week is Zelensky and Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire under the appropriate terms. Now, something that they would have wanted before as well, under the appropriate terms with the appropriate security guarantees. And Zelensky was brilliant here because he knew that, number one, if Russia would agree to it, it would be good actually for Ukraine. It's good for the people, first and foremost. But also, Zelensky knew that Putin would never actually agree to it. So it was the perfect way to deliver a deal, right? Because that's how Donald Trump's transactional mind thinks, and also expose Putin. So a few days back, there was the headline, Ukraine has expressed willingness to accept the USA's suggestion of an immediate introduction of a temporary 30-day ceasefire that can be prolonged by mutual agreement of the parties on the condition that the Russian Federation accepts and simultaneously carries it out. The United States will make it known to Russia that mutuality on the part of Russia is key towards achieving peace. The United States immediately canceled the pause in exchange of intelligence data and reinstates military aid to Ukraine. So that was a big deal. And also, do you notice how the statement, even though this suggestion and this idea came from Ukraine and Europe, kind of gave the United States credit for coming up with this idea? Yeah. Just look at the delegation. By the way, just look how much bigger the Ukrainians are than Marco Rubio right there, and Walls, Donald Trump's national security advisor. And one of the things I'll just show you from this press conference that Rubio and Walls had is that they said basically the ball's now in Russia's court. Play this clip.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this on to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the President's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
So they said the ball is now in Russia's court. So what did Putin do right after? So Putin's response to a ceasefire offer, as Matthew Luxmore explains, was to don military fatigues, head to the embattled Kursk region, and announce Russia will keep fighting until Ukraine is ousted from its land. A pretty clear message about what he thinks of Zelensky's overture.
Big surprise.
I want you to watch this right here.
Get all your allergy needs on DoorDash.
Google
Deliver
put a
where and when you
freaking,
need
I
them.
mean, YouTube put
With
a freaking
allergies,
ad on top of them.
Spring is an endless
I love
to-do
it.
list. Get medicine, tissues, more medicine.
And by the way, while that was going on, I know our corporate media here in the U.S. is not covering it, but I think it's pretty significant that it seems like Russia attacked the United States military shipment on March 10th, 2024. A U.S. tank contracted by the Defense Department, which had military fuel on board and was stationary off the coast of Britain, was hit by another cargo ship, which was being captained, mastered by a Russian and by a crew of Russians. Here's how it's being reported here. Initially suspected as an intentional Russian act of sabotage on American military interests off the coast of Britain. There was a Russian captain at the helm of a Russian crewed ship called the Solong. They were arrested by British authorities after ramming the Stella Immaculate, which was the ship that had tanker carrying jet fuel for the United States military. Seems to be intentional criminal, dare I say, terrorist attack or a military attack at the same time. It seems to be directly related to this deal that happened in Ukraine. I know our corporate media doesn't cover it, but they cover it on Sky News. So let me just bring it to our American audience so we can see what's actually happening in the world, where it seems that Russia actually attacked an American ship with American military defense jet fuel. Could you imagine if that was the other way around and it was Ukrainians who did that? And by the way, you don't hear a peep from Donald. Let's play this from Sky News.
News on that maritime collision on Monday in the North Sea off the coast of Yorkshire. And it's being reported that the Solong ship, which was, of course, the one that was moving and crashed into the stationary Stena Immaculate, that the master of that ship is a Russian national, that the rest of the crew is Russian and also that's being reported in just the last few moments.
So going back to this military meeting that Vladimir Putin held in the Kursk region, let me just share with you what he said. We have an AI translation here. This is not Putin's actual voice, but it's an AI rendition of his voice. You'll hear him basically say, we need to basically escalate the war, and we need to immediately take over this region. We want to see immediate victories in the war. And so the response to the ceasefire agreement by Ukraine was met in Russia by an escalation. Here,
I think I'd rather read it.
At the same time, I also want to remind you that foreign mercenaries do not fall under the Geneva Convention of 1949. If people who are on the territory of the Kursk region commit crimes here against civilians, oppose our armed forces, law enforcement agencies, and special services in accordance with the laws of the Russian Federation and are terrorists. This is how their actions are classified by the General Prosecutor's Office of Russia. And this is precisely why the Investigative Committee of the Russian Federation has opened a criminal case against them on charges of terrorism. Just now, Valery Vasilyevich mentioned the prisoners, but we must undoubtedly regard these people as terrorists in accordance with the laws of the Russian Federation.
So Donald Trump was asked about this during his product placement event with Elon Musk. And Donald Trump talked about the ceasefire, and he goes, well, now we have to go to Putin. We'll see what Putin has to say. Here, play this clip.
But very importantly, and I said it, Ukraine, ceasefire. Ukraine, ceasefire. Just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia, and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also, and we can get this show on the road. We can get.
Okay, you have to go to Putin, see what Putin has to say. Putin's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, did an interview with these like right-wing podcasters, because I guess right-wing podcasters now like glaze the Russian
I don't know about you, but if I thought somebody was a terrorist, I wouldn't agree to a ceasefire. I mean, for real. There wouldn't even be any talking about it. And this would not be a discussion. Not even as a attempted ploy.
So Lavrov didn't talk anyway about the ceasefire, as Timothy Milanov explains about this podcast that they're inviting like Russian foreign ministers on these right-wing podcasts. Nothing on ceasefire or American efforts to break the U.S. off China. So American efforts to break the U.S. off China are futile. Lavrov explains that Rubio recognizes a multipolar world where countries' power is defined by its strength. Smaller countries are second-rate. We still want other Ukrainian territories where ethnic Russians live. In other words, Foreign Minister Lavrov saying, no, it doesn't even. The level of how they view Trump is with such contempt and disrespect, or they view him as so weak. They don't even mention the ceasefire deal at all, and because they treat him like we're not even talking about it. We're not even going to mention his fake deals. No. They go, look, we're going to continue to try to engage in this unlawful invasion. And America's stupid, basically, if they think that their grand strategy is to separate us from China. As our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, explains, okay, so Rubio announced Ukraine signed the ceasefire agreement, and now the ball is in Russia's court, but it seems like Putin's response is to escalate the war against Ukraine. So maybe Trump advance can finally admit that Ukraine wants peace and Putin wants war. Of course they won't. The question is why. Here, Donald Trump was asked yesterday about this, and he was asked, are you confident that Putin will keep the ceasefire? Putin's not even acknowledging the existence of it.
I didn't believe it until I tried it myself, but if you download the AliExpress app through this video, you can pick any 3 items that you want for a total...
Putin's not even acknowledging the existence of it, but play this clip. News.
Are you confident that President Putin will keep the ceasefire, considering that he's broken them in the past?
We haven't spoken to him yet with substance, because we just found out and we just were able to get Ukraine to agree. So,
and then going back to President Zelensky of Ukraine, I mean, steady leadership. He knows how to deal with Trump. He knows how to, he didn't give into a horrible, rare earth, mineral deal without security guarantees. He's navigated this, I think, masterfully with the assistance of the Europeans behind the scenes. Zelensky posted the following. We must move toward peace, toward security guarantees, and we need to free our people. We are determined to work as quickly as possible with our partners. The key factor is our partners' ability to ensure Russia's readiness not to deceive, but to genuinely end the war, because right now Russian strikes have not stopped. Around 100 Shahed drones attack Ukraine each night. Missile strikes are regular. Some of our civilian infrastructure and ports have been hit, unfortunately, including in Odessa. We continue our work on diplomatic fronts to ensure that all necessary conditions are swiftly in place to apply pressure on Russia to achieve real peace. I am awaiting a report from the Ukrainian delegation that worked in Saudi Arabia, and we are preparing new tasks toward our diplomacy. And that's exactly how it's done. Now, I want to be very clear. Americans overwhelmingly support Ukraine and not Russia. Yeah, there's a MAGA right-wing extremist group that loves Russia because Trump does. But, let me show you this. This was from 2 weeks back. I want to remind you of it, where Democratic Congressmember Tom Suozzi received a huge standing ovation in a Trump +5 congressional district at Hofstra University in Hempstead after talking about how despicable Trump's behavior was in the Oval Office with Zelensky. Americans are furious at how Trump was treating Zelensky, and Zelensky, though, handled it with grace and dignity and strength. And I think Zelensky's put himself in a strong position with his people, a strong position internationally, and a strong negotiating position. It's brilliant stuff. Here, this is Congressmember Swazi play.
Listen, everybody's freaking out. Everybody's like, I'm Mr. Let's work together, let's try and find common ground. And what happened in the White House yesterday, and I was so pissed off.
Get it.
I wanted you to get that out of your system.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. And thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out
Eat
our
breakfast,
Truth
Boo.
Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com.
Oh, 100%.
Hey guys, this is Senator John Alsop in Georgia. You may have seen the news that Donald Trump says he will back Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene to challenge me for the U.S. Senate here in Georgia. If you agree with me that Marjorie Taylor Greene should never become a United States Senator, please chip in what you can right now to support my re-election campaign. You've always been there for me.
You're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet we look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he found are so eminent, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night.
That's how you fight. Democratic Congressmember John Larson saying, where the hell is Elon Musk? Oh, wait a minute. We know why he's not here submitting to oversight by Congress. We know why you MAGA Republicans are refusing to do your damn job. It's because y'all want to get rid of Social Security. That's what Elon Musk has been talking about as he's talked about privatizing Social Security or saying that the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. Let's highlight some Democrats fighting back like Democratic Congressmember John Larson, shall we?
Good, we
Here's
need more of
Bernie
that.
Sanders at a recent event that he held. And again, he's listening to the people. He's relating to what the people are saying and the suffering that they're experiencing now being caused by the Trump regime. Let's play it.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all. No. It is not Bernie. If there is ever a time in American history where it's not one person, but millions of people, this is that time.
Next clip I want to share with you is Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Did a great job on this interview. I'm liking this Governor Walz, and I just think he either held himself back or he was held back during the...
If I had to pick a running mate or a vice president, I would definitely be picking Walz. I did like what I saw from him during the campaign that he did with Harris. And honestly, I think if that ticket had been flipped, it would have stood a better chance. Yeah. I think it would have stood a lot better chance.
campaign. This is the guy that made me really excited when I found out that he would be picked to be the VP pick with Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's what he says. Let's play it.
I hope that I think your viewers know this is, there's no plan behind this. Donald Trump doesn't know how anything works. Donald Trump is this caricature that had a reality TV show that pretended like he knew how to run businesses. The reality is he doesn't. As a governor, we have to make these things work. Local school districts have to understand what are the impacts going to be when you lay off 1,300 experts who are there to make sure that every one of our children get an equitable education. And so it's chaos.
Now, take what I just showed you and contrast it to what MAGA Mike Johnson was saying yesterday. MAGA Mike Johnson was saying, look, Elon, he's so smart. He's got the biggest platform in the world. You know, sometimes he says things that are misunderstood and it causes big problems. I don't know, like when he got rid of people at the nuclear power plants or nuclear weapons, or when he said that he fired the people who study Ebola, or watch what MAGA Mike said.
After being reborn in another world, you find yourself there.
People who study Ebola, or watch what MAGA Mike says.
I think of it metaphorically. I get up every morning and I have this giant sort of control panel. It's got 219 dials on it, and I gotta make sure everybody's, okay, this one's, and then I got the President Trump dial, and now I have the Elon dial. Okay, because Elon has the largest platform in the world, literally, and if he goes on and says something that's misunderstood or misinterpreted about something we're doing, he can blow the whole thing up. So I spend a lot of time working with all these dials and all these folks and just run around all day and make sure everybody's happy.
So utterly pathetic. Let's go back to Governor Walz. Here's what he goes. He goes, look, Trump's the guy who's declared bankruptcy over and over again. Who declares bankruptcy more than Trump? This is a guy who doesn't pay his bills. Play this clip.
Again, he negotiated the damn trade deal with them. If trade is so bad with Canada, he was the guy who signed the deal. It defies logic, but look, I think this is how he ran business. He stiffed contractors, he stiffed workers, he doesn't pay his bills, he declares bankruptcy. The one thing is, his claim that he's the business president, he is the worst possible business executive that I have ever witnessed. And I hope, this is what we need. I need the business community to speak up. The Wall Street Journal, thank you. Thank you for saying this is the stupidest trade war, because I've been saying it. So now I can go back to my constituents, Republican constituents, and say, this is the reality of what you're facing.
And boy, did Montana make a massive mistake when they chose the MAGA Republican guy, Sheehy, over John Tester, who was a great senator. Here, the MAGA Republican senator from Tim Sheehy from Montana says, look, this is what happens sometimes with the stock market. We were on a sugar high. We'll see a correction here. No one really likes good stock markets, right? We don't like that. We like crashing markets. That's how the MAGAs are trying to spin this, that crashing markets are good because we were on a sugar high. And now we need to be punished by Daddy Trump and Daddy Elon. That's what these idiots are saying. Play this clip.
We all love a good stock market, but the reality is that stock market imbalance didn't necessarily benefit the smaller, mid-sized companies and average shareholders across the country. It didn't necessarily benefit Main Street that much. So I think we are going to see a correction there, but the reality...
What did he say?
Because the stock market's not the economy is not the stock market. It's not uncommon for uncertainty to cause disruptions in that as they digest a new environmental, a new economic landscape.
This episode of the Midas Touch podcast is brought to you by Graza. And yes, it's my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, never blended, and comes from a single type of olive, the Bacual, straight out of high-end Spain, where over half the world's olive oil is made. So what makes Graza so good? First, it's single origin, which means no mystery blends, just pure, flavorful oil you can actually trust. And the packaging, game changer. Squeeze and spray bottles, no drippy mess, no fussy tins, just aim, squeeze, done. They've got 3 types: Frizzle, the newest one for high heat frying and grilling; Sizzle, your go-to everyday oil for sauteing or roasting; and Drizzle, a bold finishing oil you'll want to put on everything. Yes, even ice cream. Don't knock it till you try it. Personally, I love using Graza. It's perfect for when I'm roasting veggies. Super clean, super flavorful, and way easier than my old olive oil set.
That may be Greek, but that just sounds weird. Olive oil and ice cream? Yeah, that sounds weird.
I've also been making some amazing salad dressings with the drizzle oil. It's so good, so convenient, I don't think I could ever go back to anything else. So head to graza.co and use code MIDAS to get 10% off of Trio, which includes sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. That's graza.co and use MIDAS, M-I-D-A-S.
No wonder Donald Trump's approval is plummeting. No wonder people are pissed at these MAGAs. MAGA Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville right here. And his view of the markets crashing, people's retirements being lost is no pain, no gain, he says. No, because when he was a coach in football, no pain, no gain. You deserve to feel the pain, care of the Trump regime, because that's the only way you're going to learn to be a better person when they inflict suffering on you. That's what they are saying. Play this clip.
And Trump's tariffs making America great again. It's a great strategy. If somebody's finally doing something out of the White House, President Trump.
It's not a great strategy. As a matter of fact, it's the reverse of a great strategy if you want to keep your economy going good and intact, but still want to be able to essentially get after these other countries. You wouldn't be doing a tariff. You would be doing a tax instead of a tax on imports. You'd be doing a tax on exports. That's how you would actually get your money from other countries. You'd be taxing other countries that way. That's how import-export works. When you're importing stuff, you are paying for it, or the customer is paying for it, or the other. If it's being exported, it's being paid for by somebody outside. Therefore, that person would be paying the one paying the tax. I know, boring ass economy shit, but let's be real on this seriously. That's how it actually works. That's why we've had so many export taxes over the years. Not import taxes.
That says you have to take an action in another country.
Yeah. No pain, no gain. That's what we used to tell our football players. There's going to be some pain with tariffs. But tariffs got us back as the strongest economy in the world when President Trump was in the first time. He knows what he's doing. Democrats, get out of the way, shut up, you have no answers, you didn't do anything right in the last 4 years with Joe Biden. Well, we have a game plan. Trump has a game plan along with Howard Lutnick and the other people that are...
Bitch, please. Didn't do anything right. No. If you voted for the world to collapse, good job. You get what you voted for. If it's anybody else, wake up.
Pushing the tariffs, we can turn this thing around. But folks, let me tell you, this is our last chance. If we can't get it done now with tariffs and with pulling regulations and getting people back to work and cutting our debt and cutting the amount of spending, we're not going to have the country that we've had before. So people need to just listen, learn from this, understand it's short-term pain. We'll get this turned around. President Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and he has a game plan.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing to deconstruct and destroy. He doesn't have a clue what damage it's going to do, or obviously how deep. This is not going to be a short-term pain thing. That's not legit. You still can't see through this shit. I hope you come prayer.
Something Democrats didn't know anything about.
This has absolutely changed the game. Xbox on my iPhone, not only does it...
Around President Trump knows exactly what he's doing, and he has a game plan. Something Democrats didn't know anything about.
Now let me share with you Democratic Congress member Nagoose. He came on the Midas Touch podcast. I interviewed him. Let's take a look. He's on the Rules Committee, and he focuses on the subcommittee on legislation and the budget. Here's what he's got to say.
That there will be mass collateral damage to the absurdities of the policies that they are pursuing. And so, I think about the average working family in my district that's struggling to be able to buy a new car because car prices are soaring through the roof. Interest rates are still remarkably high. And what are they left with? They're left with, the car infomercial that the President of the United States conducted earlier today on the White House lawn. That is their policy prescription, right, is to engage in these reckless economic policies, the tariffs and the rest, unnecessary trade wars, and then ultimately offer nothing of actual consequence to the American people who are really struggling. And from my perspective, that's the most confounding part of all. House Democrats are going to remain focused, as Leader Jeffries often says, keeping the main thing, which is quality of life, cost of living, addressing core challenges that the American people face that Republicans refuse to address, and as I said, if anything, are exacerbating.
I had Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries on. Here's what he had to say.
We understand that people are anxious, scared, concerned, upset at the state of affairs as a result of the flooding of the zone and the unleashing of this extremism from the Trump administration and the failure of House Republicans or Senate Republicans to actually serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. We hear you, we see you, but most importantly, we are committed to making life better for you. We're going to turn this national nightmare around and make sure we can bring the American dream to life for every single person in this great country.
I had Ro Khanna on, Democratic Congress member Khanna. Here's what he had to say.
What gives me confidence is propaganda, even if you have innate information asymmetry, doesn't work when the reality is terrible. And what Biden had was, in many cases, an economy that was recovering and we got hurt by propaganda. Now you actually have a terribly moving economy and people are hurting. And there's no amount of things that Sean Hannity can say that's going to pay the bills. There's no amount of things that Charlie Kirk can say that's going to pay the bills. And so, you can't spin reality at a certain point, and that's what the Republicans are waking up to.
And our Gen Z superstar, Adam Mockler, had Democratic Senator Mark Kelly on, and here's what Senator Kelly had to say.
Well, yeah, first of all, that was kind of a surprise to me. When I was flying in combat over Iraq during the first Gulf War, getting shot at on, almost every time I went up on missions, I didn't expect that there was a 10-year-old kid, sitting in South Africa, who one day was going to become the richest guy in the world and was going to call me a traitor for doing my job. I mean, who saw this coming? It was quite the surprise. I don't take him very seriously. Now he kind of acts like a 12-year-old kid, just hurling around insults. He supposedly has this big job in the the Trump administration, he's just doing an incredible amount of damage to our institutions, to our workforce, but to the missions that this government needs to keep people safe, to keep our economy moving forward. He's doing significant damage. So I don't take the guy incredibly seriously, but at the same time, I do worry significantly about the damage he's doing.
Got to mention this one more video here. I had New York Attorney General Letitia James on the Midas Touch podcast. Here's what she had to say.
So the list goes on and on and on. Whenever he issues an executive order, it's the blue wall of defense, the attorneys general all across this country who respond in record time, defending the rights of individuals, defending the rule of law, and standing up for our democracy and for our freedom. And we'll continue to do that, even with their threats, and even with all of their the fact that they throw everything against the wall and see what's going to stick. Attorneys general, we're prepared to respond in record time. See what's going to stick. Attorneys general, we're prepared to respond in record time.
And there wouldn't be a Midas Touch video if I didn't share with you Democratic Congress member Jim McGovern on the House floor speaking the truth right here. One of the things he points out is in that bogus BS continuing resolution that the MAGAs have tried to push through that will be a massive gain for the billionaires and screw over people on Medicaid, screw over veterans, screw over the Department of Education. He goes, they slipped in a clause letting them escape from ever having to debate or vote on Trump's tariffs. They gave full authority, and they snuck it in a little tiny footnote. Here, play this clip.
Republicans are really hoping I don't bring up this last part. Guess what they tucked into this rule? Hoping that nobody would notice. They did this after everyone went home. They slipped in a little clause letting them escape from ever having to debate or vote on Trump's tariffs. Isn't that clever? Trump's trade war will result in one of the largest, if not the largest, tax increase on American families ever. And this rule gives him the ability to do it without a vote in Congress. I get it. They're already hiding from their voters, running away from their own town halls, slipping out the back doors because they're afraid of being held accountable by their own actions. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? People don't send us here to hide. They send us here to fight for them, and they send us here to vote. And Democrats are not going to be complicit in voting to screw over America's veterans. We're not going to be complicit in voting to screw over our senior citizens on Social Security. We're not going to be complicit in taking money away from first responders. And we're sure as hell not going to be silent when it comes to this administration's BS and their corruption. Because what we are going to do is we're going to show up in our communities. We're going to stand up for veterans. We're going to speak up for people on Medicaid and Social Security. And we're going to put up one hell of a fight when it comes to the middle class families who are counting on us to fight for them. I urge a no vote on the disgraceful rule, a no vote on the underlying legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlemen, reserve. Wow, powerful stuff. Let me know what you think. Good to see fight. Democrats need to be fighting like this. Now, Democrats need to go into those red districts and go into those purple districts where the MAGA Republicans are too scared to speak to their voters. And Democrats need to speak to them because they're on Medicaid. They have these programs that are being taken from them. They're veterans. They're on Social Security. Their pensions and 401ks are being destroyed by these MAGAs. So Democrats, go out and speak to them, please. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com. All 100% USA Union made.
This Dashcam talks to you in response to the given voice email.
Men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet look at the empty seats here. Where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he found are so evident, why isn't he here explaining it? You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night. People are aware of this. Every single one of your districts, all the money that comes in monthly, and you have not done, you as a Congress, have not done anything in more than 54 years. And now you have someone coming in to privatize a system, something you have longed to do going back to 1982. Because Elon Musk thinks that this is the best thing to do. President Trump has called Social Security a scam. Elon Musk, as chairman, as Mr. Neal said, called it a Ponzi scheme. Ask that of the people in your district. Ask that, Mr. Smith, of the more than 198,000 people in your district who rely on Social Security, and you won't even let the person who's planning to privatize it, who's telling the big lie in front of everyone, as bold as he possibly can, saying, this is what we're going to do. The Congress is in our back pocket. We don't even have to come before them and testify because we control the House, we control the Senate, and we control the presidency. And it's the tyranny of the executive. It's why these resolutions were first adopted back in 1789. Because the founding fathers knew that the executive branch does not have total authority over the legislature unless you have a willing party that says, no, we're going to do exactly what you tell us to do, Mr. Musk and Mr. President. It doesn't matter to our constituents. It doesn't matter how much money they are not going to receive. We're not even going to tell them the truth about what's going to happen to them. And every single one of these districts where they're being shut down and their personnel, as Mr. Neal said, Dan, after you cut and eliminate the people, say the agency isn't responding accordingly. No other agency operates for under less than 1%. With that, they administer to over 70 million people in the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and children. Shame! Shame! Can't bring people in front of this body? If he's right, if they're so good, if they're so just, why aren't they here telling the Americans?
You know, I'm not typically one for the whole public shaming, especially the old school, almost religious flavor like that. But I'll be damned if the fucking tents and everything wasn't spot on. And he's right. They should be fucking ashamed. And anyone who thinks that that's the way it should be ashamed.
because you know the truth. It's about privatization. I yield back.
No, that's all. Damn. Yeah. Right. It is about privatization. And they are attempting to privatize everything and anything and everything that is government. Turn it into a business. No, it's not a good thing. Privatization of almost everything is not a good thing. People were all for the privatization of NASA, the space program. I was just, no. That puts one person in control of it. And what we say about it no longer has any meaning. Hell no. That means our tax dollars are going to something that we don't have control over what happens about it. We don't have a say. Because we're not stockholders. We're not the... Anyways, we wouldn't be involved. Something's supposed to be a countrywide thing would be no same country about it. And whoever the asshole is in the bottom. Or very well in this case could be given it. Yeah, shit not good. Shit is not good. Kind of ridiculous. Alright, it says don't censor means censoring a lot of shit. I don't know what's up with that. Anyways. I think I'm going to end this and kick myself a little bit of a nap. A little bit later, probably play some more Tiny Tina's Wonderlands before switching over to Palworld tonight. Excuse me. Alright, so we'll be back up tomorrow.